Coming up, we're going to be talking about Ivy Bridge, and then RAM for Sandy Bridge, E.
The bar has been set wicked fast. It rocked in the benchmarks. We're going to up the ante a little bit.
Processing power. I kind of understand this. Welcome back to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar, alongside, guess what, Dave Altavilla, and guess who, Marco Chiappetta. Hey, how are you guys doing?
I'm voguing again. Dang it.
How about you? What kind of Madonna dancing are you doing, Marco?
This body is not built for Madonna dancing.
Only moonwalking.
That's it.
Marco. If you didn't know this, he can cut a rug.
As long as I'm headed towards some cupcakes.
True story. So if Dave starts getting pixelated or bizarre thing, it's not that he hates you. It's that Skype is being a no good Nick. That's the nicest way of putting it, I think.
Skype is no good sometimes,
so
yes.
Please, don't fear. The content quality is still high, even the video quality might be a little strange. And I apologize right now because I control the internet. So
don't fear the Reaper.
There we go. Let's talk about Ivy Bridge. If you listen to the tease, we're going to talk about Ivy Bridge, and then Ivy Bridge, and then Ivy Bridge, and then Sandy Bridge. I know that sounds like overkill, but it's not. Because the first thing we're going to hit is the new Dell All-in-One, the XPS 127. Now, it's not the number 1 and then 27. It's 1, O-N-E, because it's an all-in-one PC. And I got to say, it's actually quite a pretty PC. You guys reviewed it. Dave, give us a rundown.
Yeah, so part of our litany of Ivy Bridge goodness for this episode, the folks at Dell stepped out early with an all-in-one PC, and it's a 27-inch model, actually really nice display, a Samsung PLS LCD with a native resolution of 2560 by 1440. It is Intel Ivy Bridge infused, to be specific, a third-generation Intel Core i7-3770S quad-core processor, actually with hyperthreading, so 8 available threads to the operating system, and 8 gigs of DDR3 1600 megahertz memory, and a discrete GeForce GT 640M graphics subsystem with 2 gigs of DDR5 graphics memory. So loaded up pretty darn good with mobile technologies, as these all-in-ones tend to be designed with. And, you know, again, that display is just gorgeous, and it's oh so important to have a quality display when the display is the PC. You can't detach one from the other in an all-in-one, so you got to really nail the display, and Dell definitely did. We really like this machine.
All right, so everyone's going to do this. It's an all-in-one. It's a PC. They're going to compare it to Apple's all-in-one, the iMac. What do you think of the styling? What makes the Dell XPS 1 unique? Does it actually have any hooks, something cool about it that, one, people aren't going, look, that's just the iMac again? I mean, to me, it was a nice design. What did you guys think?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that. One of the things that comes to mind when I look at all-in-one PCs is that, you know, you either get really mediocre stuff or really impressive stuff, one way or the other. All-in-ones are sort of a tough gig for the average manufacturer to hit. Too often, they're touch-enabled, and the displays are kind of not so hot as a result of that. This is not a touch-enabled PC, and so it's a premium. It's Dell's XPS line. It's a premium, you know, sort of design and build quality. Really nice brushed aluminum on the exterior and the stand. The display is gorgeous, and really, you know, you look at this class of all-in-ones, and it very much measures up to the quality that Apple's iMac is known for. You know, HP, I would say, maybe had 1 or 2 of their touch smarts along the way that really kind of measured up from a quality standpoint in the all-in-one arena. It's again, it's a tough gig, and we sort of look down our nose a little bit at all-in-ones because, you know, there's a lot of compromise you got to make. But this is a really nice machine. There's nothing too special about it from a design standpoint except the gorgeous display. I mean, and we just can't say enough about it. The Samsung display on this, the panel, 27-inch panel, is just sweet. But it does have some of the latest generation Intel technologies under the hood. And, you know, in addition to Ivy Bridge, they also have a 32 gig SSD, caching SSD for the 2 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive. So now you've got Intel Smart Response technology going on, and the hard drive acts a lot like, even over its 2 terabyte volume, acts a lot like an SSD in terms of response times and just general bandwidth and throughput. We actually ran it through PC Mark and a few of the different benchmarks that we use, and this thing scored top of the pack for any all-in-one PC we have tested to date, and that includes systems like HP's TouchSmart, Lenovo's ThinkCentre, a couple of different boxes from Asus, all-in-ones from Asus. This thing took the benchmark gauntlet by storm and put up the best numbers we've seen in an all-in-one. So kudos to Dell for putting some quality, nuts and bolts hardware under the hood, courtesy of Intel, coupling that with a super sharp panel. This is a really nice system for an all-in-one, and it's no slouch on the benchmarks, which is great.
Any reservations recommending this PC, considering this is some kind of like limbo period? We're waiting for Windows 8. That'll be coming out somewhat, rumored to be October, and that seems to be kind of touch-centric. Would you, when you see this giant 27-inch display, do you think that because it's not touch-enabled, this is going to put some people off waiting for October?
I personally don't. I think, there's two types of consumers for the all-in-one PC market. There's the people that want touch and the people that don't. And I would dare say that the people that don't want touch are probably the majority. When you look at, the Apple iMac, touch is not an option for that thing. And Apple sold a boatload of them. And when you think about this PC, this is a 27-inch high-res panel, 2560 by 1440 display. I don't want to go mucking my fingers all over this thing. It's too pretty, and really, you can do some really nice, high-end work with this thing. Some good graphics work, Photoshop, things like that, where this has a fair amount of horsepower under the hood for a little bit more demanding user, whether it be multimedia content creation, what have you. And, I think there's plenty of market for these systems without touch. Windows 8 comes along, sure, you're going to have that, tile-based UI looking at you. But for now, I think the migration to Windows 8, you're either all in on that thing or you're not. And I don't think it's going to hold folks back from this, nor do I think it should.
I think we should move on from Ivy Bridge to Ivy Bridge because you can't get enough of Ivy Bridge. Now, you guys took a look at the Intel Core i5-3470. Now, obviously, this is the step below the i7. This, I believe, is this a dual core, Marco? The i5?
No, there's some confusion with Ivy Bridge because the desktop and the mobile parts, it's kind of confusing where the duals and the quads and the 8-thread parts come in. So on the desktop, the Core i7s are quad-core 8-thread. Core i5s are quad-core 4-thread, and Core i3s are dual-core 4-thread. So the ones that can do more threads than cores that have hyperthreading, the Core i5s do not have hyperthreading. That's really the main difference on the desktop. It's a little more different. It's a little different on the mobile side. The model numbers are a little different there. But yeah, the Core i5-3470 that we looked at is a brand new quad-core. It's based on the same physical die as the Core i7-3770, the high-end Ivy Bridge. It's just clocked a little lower, does not have hyperthreading, and it also has slightly less L3 cache. So the 3470 is let me just double check the clock so that I don't get it wrong. It has a base clock of 3.2 gigahertz and a peak turbo frequency of 3.6 gigahertz, 6 megs of L3 cache as opposed to the 8 megs of the higher end chip. And the other difference, the integrated graphics core is the Intel HD 2500 engine. It's not the 4000 that's found in the higher end chips.
Now, for the performance of the 2500 versus the 4000, there's a market difference there, right?
Yes, that's where the biggest performance difference actually comes from. The 2500 series graphics engine only has 6 execution units versus I think it was 16 in the 4000 series, and having that, far fewer resources in the GPU results in much lower GPU performance. So as far as gaming, anything like that, I would not consider the 2500 for any kind of gaming unless it's the most casual stuff on Facebook or you're really into retro gaming with older titles. The HD 4000 series engine is much better in that regard. But in terms of CPU performance, Yes, there is a loss in performance without having hyperthreading, but that only concerns highly threaded apps if you're doing rendering work, things like that. For normal desktop use or single-threaded apps, you don't really see that much of a difference, and it kind of shows in the best benchmarks. If you look at the system-level tests or something like lame MP3 encoding where it uses only 1 or 2 threads, this Core i5 is right on top of the Core i7. It's really close. Really, the only performance differences come from having less cache and slightly lower clocks. When you look at something like Cinebench or Pavre that can use all of the threads in a hyper-threaded chip, that's when the Core i7s and higher-end chips pull away.
Now, how does this third-generation Core i5 do up against the second-generation i7? Because, I mean, it seems like you could probably get the i7, the second-generation one, cheaper, but that's quad-core, and that has hyper-threading, I believe.
Right.
How did it do compared to the previous generation's top-of-the-line?
It's sort of kind of the same story. If you look at a lightly threaded workload, the Core i5 looks nice because this new Core i5 3470, the third generation chip, looks nice because it turbos a little higher, and there are some slight architectural enhancements with Ivy Bridge, so it has a little bit of a performance edge there. If you go towards a highly threaded workload, giving similar clocks, the previous gen that can do 8 threads is going to outperform the current gen that can only do 4.
I think we should switch topics entirely. We haven't talked about this in a long time. Let's talk about Ivy Bridge. Let's talk about the Core i5 3427U. This is Ivy Bridge for Ultrabooks. I assume this is the third generation of Intel Ivy Bridge Mobile, I think. I don't even know how to say this anymore because there's enough modifiers here. Dave, try to fill me in here.
Yeah, a lot of modifiers going on, and there's one more that you got to add to this one, unfortunately. This is actually what used to be known in the Core 2 Duo realm, the Consumer Ultra Low Voltage version, or CULV is what Intel used to coin for an acronym. This is the equivalent of that technology in the new Ivy Bridge architecture for Intel. And so this is the Core i5 3427U. It is a dual-core chip. It is a 17-watt device, if you can believe that. So it has a base clock of 1.8 gigahertz with a max turbo frequency of 2.6 gigahertz, 3 meg of shared L3 cache, hyper-threading on board, so 2 cores, 4 threads, and Intel HD 4000 graphics, all in 22 nanometer, all at 17 watts. So impressive stuff, and goes for powering impressively thin notebooks.
Okay, so if it's supposed to be, not so power hungry, how to do on the battery tests? Because, I mean, if you're going to have this thin and light notebook, and you're supposed to be, Intel claiming you can run around with this all day, how did this version perform?
You jumped right in, right? Like all the way to the meat, didn't you? So, yeah, actually it did very well. We've sort of, over the years, accumulated various benchmarks in battery tests. And we have 2 versions of a battery test that we run currently right now. We run Battery Eater Pro, which actually is sort of a worst case. You're churning the CPU, you're churning the graphics, you're cranking memory and hard disk all at once in this test. And it likes to eat batteries, and it lasts. The white book that Intel gave us, a really sharp, thin machine, by the way. It is not to be sold. It's not for retail, but a very nice demonstration vehicle, Ultrabook, 13-inch Ultrabook they sent us. That thin machine lasted a little over 2 hours in Battery Eater. Now, when you do some web browsing, some standard light-duty testing, now you're talking almost 8 hours of uptime, believe it or not. Very close to that, actually 448 minutes to be exact. And that's, again, just we have a standard web browser test script that refreshes our site on a specific page, loads up Flash, loads up all the goodness that you get with a standard web page browsing experience every few minutes. And this thing had, again, almost 8 hours of untethered uptime in a super thin 13.3-inch form factor. So really can't complain there. Good stuff. And yeah, Ivy Bridge, ultra low voltage equals good battery life and solid performance as well. From a performance standpoint, this chip sort of compares, it's probably 85 to 90% of the performance of Intel's standard voltage, previous generation Sandy Bridge dual core chip. So follow me there. It's, if you think about a Core i5 standard 35 watt, standard voltage dual core with hyperthreading, previous generation Sandy Bridge, it's about 85 to 90% of that. And again, this is ultra low voltage for Ultrabooks, and so real good performance there, even though it's half the power consumption. The other thing is the graphics on board are significantly faster than the previous generation Sandy Bridge HD 3000 graphics. So and to the tune of 2x clock for clock. So impressive stuff, and makes for some really nice, thin, light, sleek, and sexy Ultrabook designs that aren't emaciated, and you don't have to sacrifice performance.
Now, you tested this out with an Intel Whitebook. Do you know when this is going to be out in I guess, for sale?
Yeah, it's any day now kind of thing. The folks at Intel have already laid claim to something like, I don't know how many designs, but dozens and dozens of designs, and Ultrabooks are coming. They will be coming with integrated graphics. They'll be coming with discrete. We've heard NVIDIA gain some serious traction with their Kepler GPU, their GeForce GT 600 series GPUs. Yeah, right around the corner. We're talking weeks away, literally. We'll start seeing these types of thin and lights with Ivy Bridge under the hood hit the market. So looking forward to a fun summer with some pretty serious ultralight computing courtesy of Intel.
We're talking a lot about processors here, and maybe you want to upgrade your machine, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do a new processor. I want some more RAM, because that's another cheap way to make some real crazy performance differences. But just recently, you guys at Hot Hardware did a roundup checking out what I believe is optimized for Sandy Bridge E RAM, which I didn't even know was a thing that you could do. But apparently for this processor, you can do this because there's a special mode. What did you guys find out about this special RAM?
Oh, quick point. Let me jump in real quick. I forgot. You mentioned price. Sorry, Marco. $699 is the suggested MSRP that Intel is shooting for the new Ultrabook. So $999 was the previous generation Ultrabook. $699 now for the new generation of Ivy Bridge Ultrabook. So they're taking price cost out of the equation as well. So good stuff there. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I wanted to add that in.
Well, since we're talking about cost, let me throw out the cost of the Core i5 I mentioned, $188 in 1KU quantities. Okay, now back to the memory. So every time Intel, or even AMD for that matter, launches a new platform, their memory partners are usually ready with tons of new kits optimized for the platform, just to sort of piggyback on all the marketing dollars. So with when Sandy Bridge E launched a few months ago, it was the first desktop platform that would perform best with a quad-channel memory kit. So X58 was triple-channel. You had Z68, Z77 dual-channel. This ultra-high-end platform, the Sandy Bridge E platform, with the X79 chipset, for optimal performance, you want a quad-channel memory configuration. So the memory guys basically all put together Sandy Bridge E optimized kits. Now what that means is not only are there 4 sticks per package, but the sticks support XMP version 1.3, the Extreme Memory Profiles version 1.3. With XMP, you simply go into your BIOS or UEFI, you flip a switch, and the memory is automatically clocked at whatever that profile is set for. So it makes memory overclocking super, super easy. But with Sandy Bridge E, there's a stock speed that Intel supports officially. So DDR3 1600 is the peak memory frequency that Intel officially supports with Sandy Bridge E. Obviously, you can go higher with overclocking. The slowest memory kit we tested was 1600 megahertz. But we tested kits from 1600 megahertz all the way on up to 2.4 gigahertz to 2400 megahertz. And now what you'll find is sort of what you expect. The higher clocked kits are going to offer more bandwidth, and in some situations more performance, but not all, because the highest clocked kits also require the highest latencies, the highest CAS latency, and you lose performance as latency goes up. So we kind of tested a handful of kits from 1600 megahertz on up to sort of find the sweet spot. And for my taste, the sweet spot, if you look at price right now, 1866 megahertz to about 2.1 gigahertz is the sweet spot for Sandy Bridge E memory.
Now, were there any surprises in your test? And the other thing is, did it really make that much of a difference being able to just turn on the XMP mode? That's obviously an easy question because I read the story. I'm pretty sure it made a difference when you turn on XMP.
Yeah. So, you know what? I like XMP. If you're into PCs, into computers, but you're not a hardcore overclocker, but you want to get all the performance from the hardware you bought, XMP is great because, no exaggeration, you go to your BIOS, you choose XMP profile 1 or however many profiles the memory kit has, you hit save, and boom, your memory is running at that speed. So it's a super quick and easy way to gain performance. Now, with that said, there's not a ton of performance to be had by boosting the memory clock all the way up to 2.4 gigahertz because you're not really constrained by memory bandwidth on a quad-channel platform like this. So you'll see a few percentage points of performance increase depending on the application. But what you have to consider is price. So the least expensive kits that I tested were about $587 per gigabyte, $5-6 a gigabyte. The most expensive was about $13.37 a gigabyte. So you're talking almost triple the price, and you're definitely not getting triple the performance. You're talking a few percentage points. So if you're a hardcore overclocker, you want the most headroom possible. Money doesn't matter. The highest clock kits are the way to go. There's just no way around it. The highest clock kits, you can even push them even further, and you'll have fewer limits with memory speed. But if you're really thinking about spending your money smart and you want some additional performance, but you're not going to be tinkering like crazy, you're not a hardcore overclocker, an 1866 megahertz kit for 743 a gigabyte, definitely worth it. With that said, the cheapest kit that I tested, the Patriot memory, had by far the best heat spreaders. I think it just feels like a quality product. Most of the other kits, the G-Skill and the Corsair, they have thin aluminum heat spreaders, very lightweight. Same with the Kingston. The Patriot kit, it has to weigh 3 times as much as the others, and it has copper and high density aluminum in there. So it's really going to depend on what you want. If it's up to me, you buy a nice quality name brand 1866 megahertz kit. I like the Corsair and the G-Skill. Patriot also makes some good stuff. And the Kingston kit I tested at 2.4 gigahertz. It's just an insane clock speed for memory.
And before we wrap up, is there any other things that are just floating around? I mean, we always have something extra after the 4 topics. Anybody got anything?
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll jump in for 1 sec. Normally, we'd pitch a contest. We're still working on the details for the next one. Rest assured it's coming. I'm not going to give any other details just yet. But something that I know that you're really interested, Ayaz, Thunderbolt on Windows. The motherboards have arrived. I have a couple of them here. I have an Intel board and a board from ASUS. I also have a really slick 4-drive external RAID enclosure that's running 4 1-terabyte drives in RAID 5. I'd pick it up, but I don't want to get a hernia on camera. And we're going to be showing you that real soon. I know you're into Thunderbolt on Windows, and it's coming really soon, hopefully in the next few days.
Yeah, Thunderbolt for me is a big jump. It's almost like the only port you're going to need at this point. You can daisy chain them. The speed's incredible. I know the runs are short. You can't go past a certain, I think it's like 6 or 7 feet. I can't remember offhand, unless it's powered. But like this to me, like I remember when USB 2 came out and FireWire 800, I was like, this is where we need to be. And as a video guy myself, obviously I'm pumping video through to a computer right now. This kind of stuff to me is really important. So seeing Thunderbolt actually show up, not just on Macs, because fine, that's only one vendor, but when you have this available on every PC, that means we're going to get great accessories, and I'm just waiting to attach a camera via Thunderbolt with crazy high resolutions that I could never use on the internet because it'd be compressed to the point where you'd never notice it. But
I'd really vote then, wouldn't I?
I'm just drooling at these concepts and external everything. You could have the tiniest dumb PC. It's just it's a glorious future I'm looking forward to. Anyway, let's talk about the stuff we just talked about. If you want to know about anything we talked about in today's episode, you could check out HotHardware.com. Or if you want to go around the web, you could check out dig.com/HotHardware, Twitter.com/HotHardware, Facebook.com/HotHardware, or YouTube.com/HotHardwareVids. And maybe you want to go to Google+. You're like, I want to check this out. If you're used to Google, do a search in Google+ for Hot Hardware. You'll find it that way. Still no vanity URLs from the good folks at Google. You guys should get on that. Okay, I know Google's
Get on
busy
it.
taking care of taking over the world and such, but vanity URLs, it'd be nice. Anyway, I think that wraps
Absolutely.
it up for us at 2.5 Geeks. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks for stopping by.